I guess we're going to try and get going. Yay. Again, I apologize for this snafu because this was designed to work for benefit of people who have been spending a lot of hours laboring in as volunteers in this particular project, and this equipment not working properly is putting a real crimp in what they want to present. So I apologize to them as well, in particular. Before we get going real good here, I think I saw our new city administrator talking with a few of you, and I just, for those of you who haven't yet met him, Mr. Andrew Potter is seated over there, and he's in the midst of, what is this now, your second or fifth day on the job? So this is his fifth day on the job, and we're trying to show him what he has to do to make things better. So this is one of them that he is going to address tomorrow morning, right? Okay. We appreciate that. So for those of you who have, when we finally get through part of this tonight, hopefully you'll have a chance to speak to Andy in person if you haven't yet. What we're going to do is, if you have, I don't know if you all have copies of the agenda, but are going to do some introductory remarks here, which we've been doing. So we thank you all for coming. I'm going to do the kind of the overview of the history of this project from the city's perspective, and hopefully by then we will be able to, for Sandy to be able to use her presentation in the proper way, and then we would open it up for comments from the floor as well, from anybody who wishes to speak on the issue and tell us what your druthers are about how to move forward this project, or whether to move forward at all, or what perspective you wish to share on this, suggestions, questions, etc. So we'll start with the house in the woods. This is really the property we're all talking about. For those of you who are familiar with the house in the woods, we're around here for a number of years, you know that in June of 2009, God decided that he had had enough and burned the house down. No, I mean, struck by lightning, and unfortunately it was burned beyond repair, and certainly beyond the ability of those the property owners at that time, of remediating it. The property in September of 2010, so you notice there's well over a year that passed in that period of time, the property was formally deeded to the city. The cost that was going to be entailed in raising the structure and remediating the site was far more than the property owners could handle or had any interest in trying to handle, and basically they signed a quitclaim deed giving the property to the city, giving us the opportunity to spend the money to do those things. In March of 2011, which is again another year later, because it takes time to get through all these different phases, the council received a proposal from what was then called the Save the Land Committee. That people in the area and in the city that wanted to save the land and not have it rebuilt into homes or any other use, but instead keep it as open area. Came to the council and asked for an opportunity to work with the council in terms of finding a way to save the land and make a more public use of it. In March of 2011, the council adopted a 6-month moratorium on the property, prohibiting any development of the site. So that was the council's way of sending a message to the committee, or replying to the committee and saying, we heard your request, and We want to honor it by assuring you that, at least during that first 6-month period that you're going to be developing a proposal, that we will not entertain any other use for the land. That was not a great noble gesture by the council, I should point out, because for those of you who remember those years, it was not a good time to talk about redevelopment or development of land, building of new homes in the community. We were all watching our property values, had been watching them drop, and there wasn't a lot of interest by developers into doing infill type development, such as what would be required at that site at the time. So it was easy for the council, after developing the moratorium, to say that we have time to work with this group even a little longer and see what it is they wish to propose. In September of 2011, the Village Nature Preserve proposal was submitted to the council. The council, in turn, doing what councils do best, we referred it to the Planning Commission. And logically, because in all seriousness, that commission's job was to look at zoning, land use, etc., and determine what recommendations should be made or what kind of plans should be approved. So that's when it was referred to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission in February of 2012 actually held a public hearing on the proposal that was received by them and by the council for the development of the Village Nature Preserve. The Planning Commission approved that proposed land use, and from that time until the present day, really, that group has been working on redeveloping or clearing the land, doing a variety of things, getting indigenous plants introduced back into the area, this kind of thing, and periodically would report to the council on their progress or on issues that they might have concerns about. In the minutes of the 2021 Planning Commission meeting, the Secretary to the Friends of the Village Preserve stated that the group was not asking for funds from the city's general fund, except for mowing, path maintenance, etc., that they plan to seek grants and sources for green and natural space activities and improvements, and so on. So that it was on that basis that we've moved forward to the present day. House in the Woods, I want to just give you a breakdown of some of the city incurred costs. As of June 30th, we spent almost $19,000, $18,832 to be exact. Pam, make sure I have all the exact numbers, for securing of the property. And on the yes, at the same time, we contracted for the actual the entire demolition of the buildings and remediating, getting all those materials out of there and moving on from there. So that was another $39,400. We had to repay taxes from other taxable entities of $4,748. We had engineering consultants on the site for a tune of $1,872. So we incurred $64,852 just directly involved with it, getting the site cleared and getting it ready for any other activities. Once the Village Preserve Committee was on board, there were a number of costs we incurred as well, many at the request of that committee. We had a water tap established on the property. It cost the city $950. If they were going to do planting, this kind of thing, they needed to have water and access to it, so that was done. Habitat restoration, which I think was done with the assistance of a consultant, as I recall, that inventoried all that, was $9,995. The removal of trees and brush, this had to do with trees that were simply too large too bulky, could not be handled by volunteers. You needed to bring in heavier equipment to move it, get that stuff out of there. That was another $7,772 the city incurred. Removing of trunks, I think those must be tree trunks. It doesn't certainly have to do with the family had trunks left behind, so it was only $450 at any rate. Fence installation, and this is around, I think, the butterfly garden area that was designated, was $3,989, and more recently, mulch in the amount of $650. So over those period of time from that through, that's from July 15th of 2012 through June 29th of 2016, that was another $23,216 in total, bringing the total investment of taxpayer funds to $88,658. If it had been working at this point, we'd show a map of the property, and hopefully this will be working shortly and we'll be able to show that to you still. Did I cover it all, Kelly? Yeah. So that's kind of the city's background on this thing, and you're waiting for the computer, aren't you? All right. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about the items. Yes.
Up to the mic, please.
Yeah, and give us your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, I just wonder, Mayor, if you might address one of the meetings we were at. I think it was the one with the Planning Commission about the long-term study that the city had done and approved, and lack of green space at the time, and how this might fit in with that.
I don't remember what that is. Planning Commission, did you get involved in that?
It was before my time.
That was before your time. Well, that doesn't help me.
Was that part of the meeting back when the Planning Commission approved it? Well, I'm sure the Planning Commission did their due diligence.
Right. Again, some of the statistics are, I think, in some ways very, very relevant for what the city had paid for that study and acknowledged a pretty severe deficit of green
That was
space.
the study, I think, that was done on behalf of the group. There are, I don't remember exactly, national standards, though. There are national standards that have been published saying what amount of open space or parkland you ought to have in various cities, depending on population, etc. This city does not meet those standards. We know that, yes.
Yep, questions, sure, step up.
Hi, my name is Courtney O'Shea. I live in Lathrup Boulevard. I just thought that was a relevant question, and for us to be making decisions here today, can that information be found?
No decisions are being made today, first of all.
Absolutely.
While opinions are being formed and information is being gathered,
Yeah.
can that information be followed up in the city website?
And the city's strategic plan for parks and recreation does recognize the desire to put some additional land into park use. That plan identifies two parcels. One is in the quadrant, the other side of 11 Mile, where there is no park of any kind for folks residing in that quadrant. The other is a piece of land that adjoins the Golden Gate Park, which we actually ran our walking path onto that property. When we installed it, we thought it was ours, but it wasn't. So that plan calls for adding, there's some vacant land in that quadrant that they are recommending in the plan that we acquire, and that we acquire this additional land next to Golden Gate Park to enhance that park. So those two things are called out in the strategic plan. For whatever reason, they did not include the nature preserve, for whatever reason. I don't know.
So I'm not sure, perhaps I've gotten off track, but I guess my question is the information that was,
How deficit is the city in Parkland?
right, seems like that is important information to this
Absolutely.
issue, and
Absolutely.
can we as residents get that information made
Absolutely.
available to us?
Absolutely.
And how would that come to us?
As soon as we track it down, we can post it, email it to you.
Great.
Either one of, any of those things.
Okay, thank you.
Where would the minutes of those meetings be? I mean, what's the easiest way to track that down?
Minutes from the planning commission
Flash?
right here.
So it'd be somewhere in here?
It starts from,
I'll be happy.
it starts from the most
Okay.
You're going to have to go back to,
March 2011. Let's see if I can find any reference to that study.
the city.
I think we already
Planning Commission, February.
been standing.
Oh my goodness, Oscar King was still,
Yes, he was here then. That's right. Those were the good old days. March what?
actually, I just opened up to January 2012 and they were talking about it.
Oh my gosh.
And the preserve presentation.
No, I will not do it right now, but I will now.
So we were going to, John said we were going to truncate that presentation. Yeah. So. Oh, the deficit. Yeah.
Wish they didn't have one. Sure. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandy Johnson, and
Need to use the mic.
I'm heading up the Village Preserve transformation of this land. I'm starting it with a 5-minute YouTube that shows a prairie development in Ann Arbor, and this is in someone's own yard, so we're not talking about something far away. We're talking similar to us. It's right within the residential area. This woman had the ability to do this with her own funding, unlike us. She also will show you what is called prescribed burns, which is a wonderfully effective way of really getting the stuff out that you don't want, the invasives, and really having that ashen and everything so you can reseed and also see what's in the seed bank in terms of native plants. So you can get a sense of what her place looks like. And I raise this because while some of you may be very informed about what natural areas look like, over the time I've been doing this, it's been very clear to me that many people in Lathrup do not. And they're expecting these groomed areas and, you know, all these nice accents my images of English gardens. And natural places aren't anything like this, but hopefully you can learn to see the original beauty of this earth. And I think Diane's Garden is a good introduction, and then I will take you through the PowerPoint of what we need to let you all know what we're doing and hope to do. Okay? Enjoy.
I love my prairie.
Diane McCauley is an unusual gardener. She spent 20 years converting her backyard into what it may have looked like hundreds of years ago, a prairie filled with the kind of plants that existed here in Michigan before the European settlers came, native plants.
The more native plants we can keep alive, the richer will be the planet in the future.
Native plants are good for the environment. They don't use much water, they don't require fertilizer or pesticides, and they support the insects that many birds need to survive. To try to save native plants and the wildlife they support, Diane uses fire. It burns away other plants that threaten the natives.
The burn kills many small invasive plants and actually stimulates some native plants. I had my first burn in 2003. After that, I started planting and sowing, and I've just been at it ever since. This open area here just screamed prairie at me. It said, I was a prairie, make me a prairie. So I did.
Diane McCauley is a member of the native plant movement. She and others oppose the formal flowers and lawns of typical American homes, preferring instead wild native plants.
So much going on, so much to look at. The critters, the butterflies, birds.
It's one of the most beautiful things in the world.
Other people like Diane use native plants in their homes and office buildings. Diane McCauley worries that without native plants, some insects are threatened, and so are the birds that feed on them.
So suddenly if you were to take those native plants out of the equation, suddenly you'd start to see less diversity of birds as well. It would be pretty much like Silent Spring that Rachel Carson talked about.
We are rapidly losing plants and animals because of the giant human footprint.
When I was a child, there was lots of butterflies all over the place, but there's more and more people living here now with shopping centers going in and businesses and more homes. We're losing more and more of our prairies.
Some landscapers encourage clients like Diane to use native plants, but trying to persuade more people to be like her is a challenge.
People accusing me of trying to sell weeds.
People think native and they think weeds.
Some people think they look weedy.
Is there resistance to the native plant movement? Yes, but I've been surprised at how little.
Diane encourages neighborhood kids to plant native plants. A local school also spreads the word through children.
We start at a very young age with our kindergartners, preschoolers even, and first graders all go for a walk in the woods every single morning. They basically have an experience of native plants. I just really want them to become familiar with and honestly to love these things that we come across out in nature, that we are part of nature and we are the stewards of it.
At a public park, after a prescribed burn, children sow the seeds of native plants.
Plants matter. They're not just decorations. They have vital ecological functions. And all over the planet, we have to treat them better.
There are so many people on Earth that if we just let everything go, this planet will not be habitable. At least it will not be beautiful within a couple of generations. And I thought I wanted to do what I could on my own plot to have it beautiful.
Okay. Good idea.
Careful.
Okay. We'll get it. All righty. So, on with our PowerPoints. Can you hear me?
Can everybody hear her okay?
No. Yes, okay. Do you want to go ahead, Sam, for the next one? This, by the way, is a picture of current scene in our preserve. So you can kind of see some of Diane's preserve and similarities.
Somewhere.
Oh, go ahead. These are some of the things that we have found out, that time spent in nature, immediately adjacent to home, helps people to relieve mental fatigue, reducing aggression. Convenient access and employment of natural spaces helps relieve mental fatigue, fosters mental restoration, promoting families and communities to become safer. So green spaces can bolster neighborhood ties, a building block for strong, secure neighborhoods where people tend to support, care about, and protect one another. Go ahead. It didn't come up. Oh, well, I think in the computer shifts, this is not coming out quite straight. But this will give you an idea of just what one tree does. So a lifetime of a tree, all of these benefits. So I call them priceless. Next one. This is an acre of trees, absorbs the carbon dioxide of driving a car 11,000 miles. And one of the things that stand out about green spaces, it reduces adverse conditions that other types of development may require high costs to mitigate, such as noise, pollution, infrastructure deterioration. Okay. This is a really important one, especially with some of the flooding that we've had in southeast Michigan the last couple of years. With climate change, which of course Donald Trump says is a hoax, so it must be. With climate change, we're expecting more and more water and more heavy rains. So this is really significant what green spaces can do. All right, let's move into public health benefits. Oops. Okay, sorry, go ahead. So the most value comes when parks and even trails are located within the community of the home. And that's kind of very special and rare that we have right here in Lathrup, because our nature preserve is right in the center of our community. Homes close to natural areas may have a 5 to 20% higher value than those further away. This range, this Statistics on this ranged amazingly depending on state, area, some up to 50% higher. But just for those of you living near the preserve, know that it's around 11% is probably the increased value of your home. Physical health, we all know that obesity is a public health issue. 68.5% of adults, 31.8% of children. And this is especially sad. For the first time in 2 centuries, the current generation of children in the U.S. have shorter life expectancies than their parents. And that's really, really disturbing. So these are some of the costs to society. People have to see that what we do with our bodies has an impact on our insurances, has an impact on everything that we're paying for around the medical field. So you see that people living near a park have a 27% greater chance, away from a park have 20% chance of being overweight. If you have access to a green space, you're 24% likely to be more active, which means healthier. There's some evidence that the lack of contact with nature may be one of the factors increasing allergies and asthma. Psychological, the L is down. In greener environments, people report fewer health complaints, more often rate themselves as being in good health, and have better mental health. Savanna-like settings are associated with self-reported feelings of peacefulness, tranquility, and relaxation. Access to or simple views of open space has been shown to improve patient recovery time at hospitals. Lower medication levels have also been noted, especially pain meds. Individuals who live close to open space seem to be more effective in managing major life issues, better coping, and performing better on cognitive tasks, which is really good for us aging people. Physical activity makes people healthier. Exposure to nature and greenery makes people healthier. There's a whole movement of horticultural therapy that has really evolved from all of this. Okay. Frank has already discussed some of the early days of Lathrup, the house in the woods, 1926 to 2009. These are just some pictures that Patty Keenan had taken, and you can see the horrible destruction of what was a beautiful home at one point. You can also see how there's a lot of all this massive kind of green stuff. Most of this is all invasive. Mm-hmm. So it already had this great head start before we even could work with the property. Sure. Want to go, hon? Mm-hmm. Okay, so in the beginning is our beginning. And so here you see we were all learning as we went along with it. And we never knew about garlic mustard, but there's a whole community throughout the Midwest that has what they call a garlic mustard pool. It comes up in the spring. Garlic mustard is an herb brought over by the Europeans, and you can use it. It's edible, and if you pull it, you will smell this mustardy kind of garlicky smell. So here is Peter, who is very busy pulling this out. The time we got into the preserve, it was very, very tall, and we had our first year 65 bags of garlic mustard we pulled. You can also see how everything behind, this is before the city really paid all of getting hazardous trees and stuff removed. So, but you can get a taste of that back here. Last year, with the garlic mustard, by the way, if left untouched, within 10 years, it would cover the entire preserve. And it also means native plants would also be lost because the invasive plants have a way of killing them off. But we're part of the Garlic Mustard Challenge every year. We try to encourage people to get the garlic mustard out of your own houses too, because we see it. And last year we only had about 2 or 3 bags. So that's a significant rate that we have been able to manage this. These are the hidden things that most of you don't know about when you call the city and complain that things don't look so good. We're not doing anything. It takes a long time to pull 65 bags of garlic mustard. It takes a lot of effort. So you can also see, here we have one of our super volunteers, Mark Germain, Andy Blinder, and they are both getting at some old wood that needs to get out. They're dead trees, and Andy these are buckthorn. And as part of our movement, we have wanted to be able to educate people every step of the way. As we're learning, we wanted to share that with people. Before we even were on the land, we held a community conference on buckthorn, because there's a lot of people around the perimeter of the preserve who really want to keep their buckthorn. It provides a screen for them, but we think we may have some other alternatives. The problem with buckthorn is this probably grew within, I don't know, 2 years. Buckthorn takes off, it's a weed, it will kill everything underneath.
Sure will.
And when this area in particular, as we've opened up this area, initially there was nothing growing here. Everything was dead. So we added some plants and we sowed some seeds, and there was also seed bank there, not that they're all natives. And you'll find that there's green. There's green now in all this area. Another shot of some of our friends in the preserve. And I've had complaints from people saying it's our fault that they have deer in their backyard. And I was saying to them, I've had deer in my backyard for the last several years, even before I did this. He didn't care. He said, but I have deer. So the deer are a really gentle animal, as most of you realize. And I let them eat in my backyard for a certain amount of time. Then I put out some nice coyote blood so they won't. Just another example of how the preserve looked when we first got it. Want to go? Thanks. More pictures. This is interesting here. There are a variety of trees. This area is closer to Kern Red, and what we've discovered this is a beautiful, beautiful giant patch of white trout lily, which is a native plant that in the spring does flower. So we're also finding some treasures like that as we're getting to know the land. This was part of our first time. This is the area that the mansion was in. The city refilled it. They just filled it. They weren't looking at great soil necessarily, but we did do some sowing of seeds. And down here is the butterfly garden, and a very hot day again where we're trying to put native plants that are host plants for butterflies. So far we've been focusing on the monarchs and the swallowtails. And here is Jan. This is more toward fall, where she's doing like Diane did, where you're just kind of like scattering seeds like the wind. And here's one of our millennials in a neighboring school. Coming out and helping tame some of this nature. Okay, Zan? Again, just so you get a sense of how it looked the first year when we got it. Go ahead, hon. So this is the present then. And these are black-eyed Susans, we have a variety of types there. This picture is of our preserve. Go ahead. As is this one, and this one, and this one. And we are a year behind on this wonderful path, but we did get the path in. You can't see it here, but those of you who have not been around, this path goes all the way around here. So it's one big loop. It's not too deep. It's not going to be looking in anyone's windows. And that's one of the annual costs probably of continuing to mulch it. Okay, Zan? So this is what the future could hold. So I'm showing you all the possibilities that we thought reasonably could be accomplished. It's not to say that you may not have some great ideas that you can share with us and advocate. This is a map, again, the path that I told you about. And this area is the prairie meadow. We had promised the police that we would keep this area open. We've handled this part so far. We have to continue to open up more of this area because the police want to be able to drive by and look in, and so that was one of our agreements to even be able to do this. All right, you can see that the idea is to have different kind of plants all around the outskirts of this, both that's where most of our trees will be, as well as, is there something? Oh, okay. As well as the shrubs. And one of the things that you see here, you see how Rainbow Drive and Morning Drive connect. If we had our wishes, we would have this entire area, that the part of the road removed, so we could have this open space and have it all connected. Okay, honey. So this is our lovely gate right now, and this is an example that was one of the students rendered this drawing. It will have a lot more fullness of a native vine, either native clematis or the native bittersweet. So this is, on both sides. We have it there as well, because this will remain locked so cars and trucks don't dump stuff in there, and so the entrance is around both sides. Okay. Here's another look of part of the path, and we like to have about 3, benches placed there so people can do a lot of walking, they can do laps, they can sit down. Okay? So we have a couple ideas for around the perimeter of the preserve that we hope will make everyone happy. And this is Linda, is it Smith? Home right here. So she's on one side of the preserve and Kern Red is on the other. And as you can see, we've been pulling out the buckthorn here, and so there's much more openness. You can see that we've had plants growing in now that we didn't have, and we've done some little shrub plugs here, but it still doesn't give them the privacy or people wanting to only look at nature, not having to look at a house. So this is one option where you would just have trellis after trellis after trellis after trellis after trellis all the way around. And again, filled with alternating different types of native vines. Okay. This is the Lathrup Village Foundation had been very charitable, and they purchased these signs, or so I was told, for our city. So they wouldn't do a sign for us because we were not for sure a park. So once this becomes a green space, if it does, we thought that we could use the same kind of style of the Lathrup sign and just have it say the Village Preserve. Okay. The area where you saw where the mansion was, and there's a little areas on the path, there's still some of the original pavers, some of the original brick from the lathrop. And so we thought it might be nice to put like a historical sign and information about, you know, the Lathrup family and stuff there. So Robin Roberts with the Historical Society said that she had always hoped for signage similar to these styles. Okay. These are other options for signage that we could use. This more kind of a kiosk is great in that you can publicize when you're going to have volunteer weekends. You can show a map. You can all kinds of city announcements can also go on here. And this is another example of the kind of signage that we could have. On this sign, it shows you I believe, the life cycle of the Monarch. This is a Monarch way station, which we also are a Monarch way station. Okay. These are other examples of signage that there's amazingly, wonderfully informative signs available, and they come in all different styles. I mean, obviously, this is incredible and beautiful, but I bet very costly. Some of this is quite simple and really, really kind of like, it has the feel of our preserve. But if anyone wants to donate, we're open. I thought this is a particularly great sign in terms of educating our community to understand the importance of native prairie plants. And ideally, we could have some small signs throughout the area that will show areas of like a large amount of the echinacea or whatever to just kind of keep awareness up. Okay, honey. Just more signs. Okay, so trellis was one option for around the outside of the perimeter, not the front again. The other option, we could fence it. If we had a nice aluminum fence, it would be about at least 5 feet, all the way around. And again, we would just keep growing all these native vines, so that would also fill in. The other option is something like a tall wooden fence, where we could also grow native vines. And two different effects, and the costs are different, but really consider the possibilities. Okay. Okay, this is the hard stuff, eh? I'm sorry, I can't really see it all. Okay, so we do, thanks to Dawn, we have projected costs for the completion over the next 3 years. These are the permanent fixtures. Again, it's not lined up because of the transfer on the computer, so sorry. But a metal aluminum fence about 5 feet high will be $14,000. The cedar wood you saw, more like 11. You did not see, but there was a cedar spaced picket, smaller and much cheaper. Wood trellises, the constant around wood trellises, about $9,000. Let's see, okay, and some of what we would need, such as the auger for the posts, concrete to set it in. Next one, please.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure, go back.
Have you looked at long-term expense? Because while the metal, if we were to go with something like this, is quite a bit more upfront, it seems that the long-term maintenance would be significantly lower.
You got it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. The garden arbor, which is what we want to add on each entrance, decide to make it a welcoming, pretty entrance. Well, I think, I don't know, I don't see where it was. Oh, okay, so we have our options with the metal, the vinyl, and the wood. We were looking more initially at the wood, but we can be open, and we'll just see. The benches that you saw, about 600, 13 signs.
A piece?
No, total. These are total of what we're looking at, because a lot of this we're looking at making ourselves. You see?
And where's the funding
bringing down the cost.
Where's the funding coming from this?
There is no funding.
There's no funding.
So that's a different issue.
And the decision on what to put around it, because I live around the circle, so
Right.
I have a big concern
Right.
about what I'm going to be looking at, what's encroaching in my backyard.
Of
We
course.
already had people in our backyard, so I'm just trying to understand. So is that going to be talked about here tonight, or
Well, that will go into what the city council decides.
they will decide what goes in my backyard?
Not tonight.
No. Also, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but tonight, what was also they have it.
Here.
There you go.
What also is supposed to be a part of the presentation is the cost breakdown or the proposal for the next 3 years in its totality. And
Right.
for 4 years, okay. So to answer your question, that's what, we're hoping to do, to have the actual price or the cost to the city for the Village Preserve over the next 3 years. And then this is not, I think, as they already said, this is not we're making a decision. This is just for all of us to be informed on how we should move forward. Did I answer your question?
I just ultimately, whose decision, I guess, will it be?
This council is going to have to make a decision on what to do with the property.
Whether we have a trellis or a wooden fence or?
I think we have to start baby steps. We got to determine what we're going to do with the property first, and then we'll go from there.
If I might, normally, I would say that these things begin with someone proposing, here is what we think is the best solution for this. And then we look at it and see if we can afford to put that, make budget provisions for that in the city budget. Every dollar of the city budget competes, that's allocated to one use, competes with other uses. So we have to weigh all those decisions as the budget time comes and we begin examining which programs we're going to implement and which we are not going to be able to. So, sorry, go ahead.
I'd also like to add that the first decision is whether or not the council is going to rezone. That is the absolute first decision. The next decision would be, it's not going to be tonight, but how we get these things, if the council rezones and says we can't afford A, B, and C, then we as a group can do fundraisers. We as a group can seek ways of making these things happen. But we would need more people than those of us who are doing this right now.
But I just want to know who ultimately is going to make the decision as to what will be in my backyard.
Well, it's likely that if this gets rezoned, it will be the Friends of the Village Preserve, of which you are always welcome to join.
I just want to clarify quickly, it's not an issue of rezoning
No,
the
it's
property
not.
or not. There is no zoning classification in our ordinance for parkland. It would be a designation in the master plan. That's what the Village Preserve would be seeking.
But when you last said at the city council meeting I was at, you said that it has to be called a green space.
That's a designation in the master plan. It's not a rezoning.
Okay, but
There is no parkland zoning classification. All the existing
That's
parks
why I
in the
was
city right
nodding my
now,
head no to
they're all zone residential.
zoning questions. It's not a question of zoning. So we would not be rezoning the property in any way. The current zoning allows this use. So that's not the question. It's not the question is whether this is the use that that property should be put towards long-term. Because I think the council feels that are at a crossroads at this point where a decision needs to be reached among the council members as to if this is the best use of that land for the benefit of the city, long-term. Because when this all started, we knew that it was going to be some years before any redevelopment could occur with that land because land values were too low, et cetera, et cetera. So all this started to make use of this property in the meantime in a way that would be complementary to the neighborhood and the city. Now I think we're at a point where we're talking about, is this going to be the long-term use or isn't it? And so that's really what we're looking for input on this evening.
So Sandy, you don't have anyone that's in that circle on the committee?
No.
Is there anybody in
That's what I think that, I guess we can talk about that along the, but it should.
I'm almost done.
Okay.
Let's let her
just
finish up her presentation
okay.
and then we'll come back to discussions.
So these are the projected costs annually after the place is up to par. And so we have yard waste bags, the dog waste bags. For those of you who don't know, we have Premier Pets donated a large kind of, I don't know what it's called, doggy, whatever, and you can get bags and you can pick up after your dog and throw it away. Trees, plant seeds as needed, and miscellaneous expenses. So we're saying just about $1,275. Next. Okay. So our volunteers have been really incredible. They have been working in 90-degree weather. They have been just really amazing, and we are very, very grateful for anyone who has lent a hand. We do need many, many more helping hands. So please think about that. Dawn, can you raise your hand, Dawn? Dawn has sheets if anyone would like to be on our mailing list. If anyone would like to help volunteer, she'll take your information. We do have a Facebook page. If you could just like us, that helps. Friends, our web page is down right now, but Jan's working on it. Next one, Xander. Okay, this is important. Okay, so I've been corrected tonight that there's no rezoning. I just have Bruce Copa say rezone, rezone, rezone.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no rezoning. But what?
We'll straighten him out.
Yeah, sure, you've had your chance. But we have got to have a decision. We're not going to be able to continue with having it held over our heads each year. We may or may not go on. We may or may not go on. That's cost us in some volunteers saying, why should I make this pretty for someone developing the land? So we need to have some closure. What I've worked on is that the city has this incredible opportunity to sign with a conservation easement to the Six Rivers Conservancy. Some of you may know about this. They usually only deal with larger properties, but they were willing to take us under their wing, which I thought was incredible. So this will ensure that the village preserve will be kept a natural space for future generations. Six Rivers will continue to guide us, provide expertise, really there to help us in ways we haven't had anyone. They also may be able to assist with grants and other financial resources. So the trio would be the City of Lathrup Village, Friends of the Village Preserve, and the Six Rivers Land Conservancy. So that's also what I'm kind of hoping the city will take a look at. Next, Anna. Okay, it goes without saying that there are some very giving people. Don Hall was our numbers person. My daughter Wesley created the PowerPoint as I shipped stuff to her at grad school in New York and shipped it back to me. My son, who helped with that too. It was really cool. I went over to the University Academy of Southfield talked with the art teacher, and it was really great to be able to, do some community work together. So Kayla Winters did the drawings that rendered in the what could be, and of course my neighbor Rick Zipster, who has become more of an artist later in life. So my thanks to all of them. Want to put the other one up now? Just leave it. So I will be happy to take any questions. Okay.
Time for the audience to participate.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a time for you all to participate too. However, I appreciate this slideshow. It was very informative, and I really did learn more about it. And I appreciate you taking the time, everyone taking the time for it. There were some questions that we wanted to get answered so we can eventually make a sound decision. And some of those questions, which I saw some of them, it was a request for a timeline, exactly what it looks like for what the next, you said 3 to 4 years, a timeline for that. And then also the actual breakdown of the costs, where I'm seeing that you have the annual cost of $12.75 for the items you put up here, but I and the council would also want to know what's the annual cost to the city for the maintenance of it.
That was all included.
No, like,
That was the maintenance
the
cost.
$12.75 is the only cost to the city a year?
That's what she's saying.
That's what we're anticipating.
Okay.
But not with the fencing and the signs and the...
That's not under annual costs.
Right.
That's under
So what-
completion costs.
So,
Yeah.
so what is, I saw the breakdown of those particular things, but I didn't see total price.
Well,
Do you have one there?
You can go back to those. Okay.
Are we going to get a presentation? Are you going to give us a
Is that
copy?
it down there, the 15,000?
Is this the total amount? Is this the
15?
The range is 5,845 if you go for the cheap fences. It can go up to
okay.
15,450.
Okay.
So that is the range.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And that price, just so I'll be clear, that 5,900 to 15,000 is what it would cost to create the vision you just
Yes.
showed us.
Yes.
Can I add something real quick? So while Sandy was presenting that, I had one eye on that and one eye going through the minutes of the old Planning Commission meetings. And back in February of 2012, Peter Stefan came and did a presentation, and this is regard to Ms. O'Shea's question. Peter Stefan came to a Planning Commission meeting and talked about the standards and the fact that Lathrup Village is under the national standards for green space. So, the minutes didn't reflect what those standards were. So, God bless Google.
I have another document here that doesn't show it either. So.
God bless Google, so I went and Googled, and I just got this research paper that talked about the different standards.
Sounds like a country song. God bless Google.
God bless Google. But they vary, because there's different kinds of standards, and then this paper went on to talk about, which is better, with standards that talk about distance, area, size, but one, and which is better? Do you want every resident to be within a half mile of a park, or do you want it based on, population? So based on just the standard of population, which doesn't really take into account the fact that there are, 2 parks over there and none over there, and do we have all our residents within an equal distance? Just residents per resident. They talk about a standard of 4 acres per 1,000 residents. So if Lathrup has 4,000 and change population, are we talking about
16
do we have 16 acres of park? Or how much below 16 acres of park are we? I don't know the answer to that, but I'm sure that's something we can calculate pretty quickly.
And we've lost a significant green space where the service drive in Lathrup Boulevard.
Oh, where the condos or townhouses or whatever is going in. Yeah, but in terms of then open green space, I mean, we have, you know, how many parks do we have in Lathrup? You know, how big is the park here behind City Hall?
It's quite large, I don't know.
Yeah, do we have?
You'll have to do that calculation.
Right, and the area that we're talking about here for the house in the woods is 1 point something below 2 acres. Okay, so the rest of those calculations we will try to get and post.
So just
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Just a couple of questions, just so I understand a little bit. Sandy, did you get the questions that we submitted to you? We forwarded?
Yes.
You did. Did you get a chance to answer them and submit them?
I thought
A lot of the answers were in the presentation.
With the exception of the timeline for the...
Well, what I showed you is what I would hope could take place in that 3 years.
Okay, so this is a 3-year...
It's a 3-year timeline, right?
Right.
That's what that is. Okay. I think we need the annual maintenance costs also. Do you have that
That's what
broken
they're
out?
saying, that that's
$1,200.
That's included in there.
So the $1,275 per year for ongoing maintenance is
That's what they're...
what they're projecting.
Okay.
Can I just add one thing?
And that's, I know that, and the service sounds very low, and it is. And, but the vision that is articulated for the property envisions that an area that will require very little maintenance once they reach the plateau they're shooting for. So that's, I think, is the reason that that number is as low as you're projecting. Whether it's right or not, I just don't have a way to determine right now.
Yeah, we're not talking about a space that is going to require weekly mowing, right? That's like the opposite of the idea, right? You know, a yearly touch-up of the path.
Yeah. Tom, do you have a question or something, a comment?
Tom Bainbridge, 28010 Woodworth Way. A couple of thoughts. One with regards to the fencing. And mind you, in my 81 years on this earth, I have seen a lot of fencing and a lot of walls, one of which was one of the most insidious one that mankind has ever constructed. Walls and barriers restrict flow. And I'm concerned that if we do fence this or create a barrier around it without free access back and forth, that some of the animals are not going to be able to move. And I'm thinking most especially of the deer that we all love. Yes, I have seen a mature buck virtually from a standing start go over a 5-foot fence. But in the spring of the year, the fawns aren't going to be able to clear it. So that's one issue. So far, the city has invested approximately $90,000 in this property. It's city-owned. I'm a city taxpayer, and yet that property is posted, and I cannot go on that property today, legally.
That says no trespass.
Because I'd be trespassing and could be subject to ticket. I think if we want people to become involved, let's take the no trespassing signs down and welcome people. I realize and I appreciate having the gate at the front to keep any traffic out is appropriate. But anything that we can do to encourage people to browse through the property, I think should be done and encouraged. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't think that sign meant me.
Oh, I've been on.
I just ignore it.
Yeah.
You're breaking the law.
I go in there too, so I've been back there and walked
You
it.
know what, but that's a very good point, Tom. I mean, I'm not sure why, I don't know if that's a police powers concern or
Who
why.
put the signs up? Was that mainly to get,
Initially, the sign was placed there by the police.
oh, it was?
In the very beginning, and it was kept there because the property was not deemed safe. And so we were going to take it down once we got the path done. It's just an oversight.
This hasn't done,
Yeah.
been done, okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have any problem with taking
Oh,
it
no.
down? All right. Yes, sir.
Hi. I'm from the south. I own land down south.
Excuse me.
And I'm.
Excuse me. Can you give us your
Can you
name?
give your name and address for the record?
Oh, I thought everybody knew me already. Well, I'm
We
Jack.
should know you,
There you
right?
go. Yeah, I'm Jack Lee. I live on Morningside Plaza, and I live around the area where you guys are discussing. But it seemed like to me and most of the neighbors, we're being left out with the decision as to what's going on there. There have been cases where, when someone, you see someone moving in, and then they move in a little bit farther, and a little bit farther, and then they cross over in your space, and you're like, whoa, you're stepping on my toes, and you have to bring them to a halt, and they apologize and move back. Then the next thing you know, they're coming back again. That's the way we feel when we see, we're in the backyard enjoying holidays, on holidays, and I talked to you once, we are enjoying picnic, just relaxing. And even on a holiday, you look up and there's people there. It seems as though they just eyeballing you. You can't have no privacy in your own backyard. Some people barbecue in the front yard, but we try to be respectful and do it in the backyard where you're supposed to do it at a park. And to have people, to see people there constantly, you wake up in the morning, there's people there. You go to work, there's people there. You open your blind, you're getting out of the shower, having a look, there's people there. And to me, I don't know how the rest of the residents feel, but to me, it seemed like my yard is the target. They want to just open up that space so I can see all the beautiful, wild nature, land and plants. Well, I grew up with that kind of stuff. And I know that if you leave land alone and don't touch it, Mother Nature would take care of itself. We have cleaned out hundreds of acres of land for farmland. And since I've left and I've gone back to visit 10 years later, that land had taken care of itself. Didn't have to do a thing. It took care of itself. But just like I spoke to a lot of the people that was involved about the privacy, she spoke about the buck thumb, that a lot of people want the buck thumb for their own privacy. Everybody in Lathrup Village got buck thumb somewhere down the fence line in their home for privacy. Most of my neighbors, we got them between each other, so I can't see in their garage, they can't see in my garage. It just seemed a sense of privacy. Well, and what we got going here, if there's a suggestion, if you want people to give a suggestion, I would give a suggestion as to what we should do there. I noticed that people walk a lot, quite a bit in our neighborhood. They ride bikes quite a bit in our neighborhood. And you have people just, love to play tennis. So why can't we just clear all that out and put a mountain, a bird there with trees on the top, privacy just like they got in Southfield, and put a tennis court there with a walk, a running trail so people can run. You're talking about staying healthy. People need to walk more, they need to run more. And they'd be more comfortable with a trail that they can jog and run around just like Southfield High School got, and a tennis court so people can go and play tennis. When I go up to Southfield Lathrup High School to play tennis during the summertime, it'd be so jammed you can't play there because it's too jam-packed. You go to the Southfield to play tennis there. You got to wait in line till someone leave the court. So why can't Lathrup Village have their own tennis court and a walk trail so people can walk around that trail and get the exercise? I mean, we got plenty nature park, and our little park that we building here is not going to help us as far as our health, our asthma. It's not going to stop the pollution from carbon dioxide. It's not going to do any of that. But from what we have here, from my perspective, is that the grass growing up is just look a mess, because that's okay for some people, but you got to take in perspective that there's other people that may not find that beautiful. They may like the plants and clean cut grass and in a nice looking neighborhood. You got people with different ideas and different thoughts. So you can't take one person's idea and thought and pose it on a whole entire neighborhood and expect for us to like it and to accept it. We might have no choice but to accept it, but that don't mean we're gonna like it and think it's beautiful because you think it's beautiful. My wife may think I'm the handsomest man in the world, but there's a lot of people that think I'm the ugliest guy they ever seen.
Shows her good
People
judgment.
have different opinions. But that's the suggestion I feel that we should do with that. Put a tennis court there and a trail, and it's low maintenance. It's low maintenance. You don't have to worry about all this cost every year because it's just a tennis court and a trail. You're not going to go in there and shovel the snow during the wintertime because they don't do that for trails and tennis court. They just let it melt. Anything you possibly would do, go and remove the net, but most places they don't even remove the net. So it'll take care of itself over the years and then save the city a lot of money because right now the cost is maybe, what was it, $88,500 now, but that's just an estimate. Eventually, bam, 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 and that's what happens. When things go up, costs go up, prices go up, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Well, I think we said we'd try and keep our comments to about 3 minutes. I think we exceeded that in this case.
I'll be brief. My name's Chris Hazlett, 275-77 Rackham Drive. I've had the pleasure of volunteering at the preserve, pulling buckthorn in 90-degree weather. As far as I know, participation is open, and the residents around that area have had 5 years to participate, and apparently have chosen not to participate because they haven't. Decisions are part of a group thing, and I don't know why they haven't chosen to be part of the group. My point being is the door has always been open. So.
No, I think everybody understands that.
Right. So I just wanted to reiterate that point that there has not been any exclusion that I know
Pulling
of.
mustard and some of those other things isn't everybody's cup of tea. That's all.
Understood, but also
not everybody will want to do that.
There have been ongoing meetings every month as well. So those meetings have occurred.
I'm not sure if it's as clear that they're all welcome to those, and that would be good to reiterate. So that's fine.
Reiterated. Also, I would think that the tuk of a basketball or a tennis court might not be pleasant during one's barbecue. If you want some peace and quiet and there's people doing that back and forth. And the cost of putting in a tennis court would be several $1,000s too. So you could trade off.
Is there such a thing as a quiet barbecue? I'm not sure. Okay.
Anyway. Thank you for the time.
So what's your position on the village preserve? You didn't give us a position.
Oh, my position is that we know the value of having green space looking behind City Hall here and the other green spaces that we have. We've set aside space for activity other than mowing lawns. And having a space like that and actually having it as to show us what this area used to look like before it's been developed, to have native plants, native species, I think is very valuable. And we always remark about how the neighborhood looks rural, being 3 blocks from 696. That's rather quite amazing to have a neighborhood like that, and this could only add to that.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Annette Kingsbury, San Jose Boulevard. I've only lived here 2 years, so I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other, but what I'd like to know is what are the possible alternatives if the Village Preserve cannot continue, or if council decides not to continue it? What could possibly go in there? Are you fielding any other inquiries about the property and whether it's available since the city owns the land?
We haven't been fielding inquiries up to this point. As I said, when we first were deeded the property, We did discuss the possibility of simply replacing or using that vacant land that we've now had to put it up for development of homes similar to those that adjoin that area there. And it was not a good time from an economics point of view to be trying to sell homes. The homes we had for sale were not moving at that time and values were dropping. So
how's it
decided
designated?
not to pursue that at that time, but that's still obviously one option that's available to the city.
It's
Is to
currently
put out a request for proposals and say, what would you give us
It's
for that?
currently zoned residential, so it could be developed. I mean, I think we did just do some preliminary looking at, it could be split into, what, three houses? Three houses.
Probably a maximum of 3.
What does the master plan show?
Pardon?
The master plan.
It's R1, it's residential.
It all shows that it's residential.
Yeah.
The plan.
So, so it could be
And-
split into 3.
So-
The value we estimated of the property is
Between 60 and 75,000.
So other uses other than residential, or any other use that's permitted in residential areas, is all that it could be done there at the present time without rezoning. And there's no chance we're going to rezone that piece of property for a use that's not related to residential or whatever. So
right,
it would
Thompson
be
Towers,
uses that
Central.
would be too intense for neighborhoods like that. So that's out of the question, I think.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, and the other alternative is, rather than go through this labor-intensive, keeping it a prairie native plants, you just go in there and mow everything down, and, just have a manicured,
Manicured crabgrass or whatever.
we could ignore it entirely and let the buckthorn come back and let, the neighbors have privacy. I mean, there's lots of,
Somebody thinking they've got, you're trying to sell weeds, for example. My college background was in ornamental horticulture, so I was managing a garden store one time down near Niles, Michigan, and a buddy of mine and I potted up a bunch of weeds and gave them fancy Latin names, and we nearly sold the whole bunch. So we had to back down publicly and say this was all a hoax. So, weeds do sell, or possibly could sell.
and because it's R1, it could not support a marijuana grow operation, right?
It's R3. It's R3. So it could only tolerate small operations.
Wow. This thing's gone terribly wrong already.
Go ahead. We'll stop convincing him.
Fran Brzezinski, I'm at 27415 Morningside, so I'm exactly across the street and from the entrance. I want it to stay. I love it. One of the reasons I even moved into Lathrup was because I love that old neighborhood. It's just got its own quaint charm. It's always got all the trees, the flowering trees, the fruit trees, you name it, it's there. When I moved in, that was a whole 5-acre plot with the house in the woods.
Sure.
Behind me, Rainbow Circle was not complete, so I had woods behind me. Now, there's houses, there's the condos across the street. They've just clean cut another section there on 11 Mile. They clean cut a section on this side of Southfield when they put that last set of condos up. And I mean, it's clear cut, it's not even chosen. And even when they did choose back on Rainbow Circle, once the landowners got the houses, they cut what down they wanted anyway. So we still lost trees. Now I have all the noise from 696 in my backyard. But that's changed, that's okay. But I think with the infringement of the bank, that's enough for that particular neighborhood. We need the green space. Instead of a little plot that's the size of this stage being called a park, which is right there where Bungalow comes into Morningside Plaza. It's actually called a park.
Yep.
The preserve is a park, and can be. And I think we, as much as we need to progress, we need to maintain the character of Lathrup. And if we don't maintain that character, we're going to lose it.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Good evening. My name is Daryl Alexander. I live at 27680 Morningside. I live in one of the homes that were adjacent, actually right around that circle there. Although I take offense to that gentleman's remark that if we wanted to help out, you know, we can. I choose not to, and that's my right. I like the way my home is right now. I like the way that it's manicured, the way it is right now. I don't like the idea of it being turned into something that someone else chooses for me. That's not why I moved to Lathrup Village, and that's not why I like the uniqueness of where we are. So I'm in favor of an alternative. I'm not in favor of the green space thing. I'm not.
What's your alternative?
You know, right now, I do enough just to keep our place, or we do, just to keep our place nice with the way my neighbors have theirs. So that's enough for me. Now, if the city comes up with a plan that makes some sense, that obviously I can support, I think we'll be for that. I don't think this is the option, because when I have relatives that come in from out of town and they come to that little fork and they see that little part right there, they say that, man, that looks ugly. Now, that's to them. That looks ugly. That's leading into my neighborhood. So, in my opinion, it looks like weeds. You've made a very nice presentation here that make it look or appear that looks like something. But that lady that did that, as you can see, she didn't have a whole lot of residential homes around that. Okay, I didn't see that. Maybe I missed that part of the video, but I certainly didn't see a whole lot of homes sitting around that. So I personally, I'm not in favor of that, but that's my opinion.
Can I ask you a question, sir?
Of course you can.
Because I hear what you're saying, and I am, you are concerned, as the other gentleman was, about
We're neighbors.
what this would mean for privacy. I'm concerned that if we do develop that property and if houses go in there, you're gonna have less privacy. Rather than your home being adjacent to a nature preserve, your home's gonna be adjacent to, other homes where there's going to be more of a loss of privacy. So I'm wondering, is it necessarily the idea of this nature preserve or the privacy issue? If your privacy was protected in the nature preserve or from the nature preserve, from, even if it's not buckthorn, but it's some other type of fencing or screening, I don't hear you saying you're opposed to the nature preserve, but you're concerned about the privacy issue. Is that?
I'll restate myself. I'm not in favor of the preserve. Okay, so I'll repeat that. Now, from the privacy standpoint, okay, here is what I see happening, and it's just, I think it's inevitable. You can put a fence there, you can put a wall there. What's going to happen is that people are going to come into that preserve, they're going to walk through it, and they are not going to go back out the way that it you know, that for an entrance. And I'm talking about the younger people. An older person like me, hell, I ain't gonna climb that doggone fence. Okay, but the younger people, what they're gonna do, they're gonna figure a way, they're gonna do it. Figure a way to go over that fence and then come through my lot or my neighbor's lot, and then all of a sudden, I got traffic coming in and out. I can't monitor that. I work for a living during the day, so I can't be watching who's going to be going on my property and who's not going to be going on my property. Right now, I don't have that problem right now. Right now. So, that again, that's just my opinion.
Just ask a quick question to that point. In the 6 years that the property has been essentially vacant, and I don't see anyone from the police force, but I'd be curious how many arrests, trespassing tickets, etc. When the property was even more accessible than it has been now, how many of those occurrences have been?
I don't think there's been any, to be honest with you. The occurrence of trespassers that were caught and dealt with in one way or another occurred really before the house was totally demised. We had originally, when we originally fenced it and to keep people out, there were people who, it was an adventure to get over into there.
Yeah,
They had a different agenda, so that's why.
When the house was burned and there was people in there looting and getting
Right.
strapped.
Right.
They made arrests during that time. But there have been people going back and forth through the neighbor's yard, his yard and the neighbor next to him, to enter that place to look and to walk back out to the street.
Really?
Yes, they have been crossing over on their property. I've seen it.
When that happens, please, alert our police so that we can at least keep a record of that happening. So please don't hesitate to alert our police department.
In regards to the houses, you put 3 houses there. Those houses usually going to be surrounded, those 3 homes, and they're going to have backyard just like our backyard, and they're going to want their privacy too. So they're going to have the growth, the vegetation growth to grow up between the houses. That's nothing in regards to loss of privacy in that respect. What he was saying is that he's not for the nature, open nature vegetation that you guys offer. Just like I explained, everybody, some people think that's beautiful and some don't. I grew up and saw that stuff growing in the field that you guys say beautiful wildflower, and they are beautiful wildflower out on the farm and in the nature, but not in your neighborhood.
So you feel like the houses would provide you privacy? Is that
what the house would provide?
Well, people, I think what he's saying is people tend to
right,
landscape their backyards to ensure themselves some privacy.
I just wanted to be sure I heard him say that.
Yeah.
I think that's what he's saying.
We live next to each other. Everybody had neighbors. You don't mind your neighbors. You're supposed to know your neighbors. But
let's let some of the other folks speak now. So.
Hi, I'm Jamie Farley. I live at 27757 Santa Barbara. And first and foremost, I want to really thank Sandy and all the volunteers that have put in countless numbers of hours working on this. I've really seen the progress of the preserve. I run by there 3 to 4 times a week, so I'm constantly checking it out. I did volunteer once. I know I need to step up my game there and show up more. But yeah, just as
she has the sign-up sheet, she said. So.
Just as a resident of the neighborhood, and for all the reasons that were listed in the presentation, I think it's a great idea. I think it builds to the character of Lathrup. I'd like to see it continue, but like this gentleman said, we all have our opinions, so I just wanted to state mine, and
thank you.
That's all I got.
Just as a footnote, if any of you decide you're going to leave before we kind of conclude, I asked Pam to put some sign-up sheets at the back. If you give us your name and your email address, this kind of thing, as this, we could make sure that updates get sent out as to, and when significant decisions are approaching times or things of that nature on this question. So,
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jan Weaver, formerly at 27821 Santa Barbara. Just recently moved from Lathrup Village. My heart is still here. I have 25 years here and 5 years working on the preserve.
You need to come back and rejoin your heart.
I am still actually working. I'm here.
I know.
We have still worked on the preserve. We're working on the website. We're having software issues and everything, and we are continuing to work with the preserve. My heart is with it. We have spent a lot of time with it. I appreciate what the residents around it are saying. They have been asked to come over and give their thoughts. One of the things I think we always have to remember with neighbors is they don't always do what we want with their home next door to us, and we do have to deal with that. They may be having parties when we're trying to have a party, when we're trying to sleep, whatever. Neighbors do that. They have a fortunate advantage here that they have free land behind them. And it's been for many years basically just dead land, and they have more privacy than most of us did in Lathrup. And I was on a half acre here. I was Jamie's neighbor. So I think we have to remember that we can't always control what's going on with our neighbors. However, we can control what we do with our own property. So if they would prefer blinds up, they are free to put them up, because many people put their own fences up and they put other things up to help protect their own yards. And I'm not suggesting, I'm against fences myself. I actually would prefer not to see a fence in the preserve, but to put something. And I think it's fabulous that the preserve is considering them and even trying to continue to keep their privacy, because they have had it. Yes, that buckthorn has been horrible, and it's going to take over that property, and it's not pretty, and it takes over other people's yards, and the garlic mustard takes over their yards. So we've actually done a service to other neighbors by removing it, so it's not continuing to take over the residents of Lathrup. Part of the reason, I've always been a dual residence person. I've had a person in the northern Michigan. I love the outdoors. I love nature. That's what brought me into Lathrup Village. To have the opportunity to be able to have taken my children over to that park and walk them through them and teach them more about more natural nature than just the beautiful groomed yards that we have, I absolutely would do it. And I think it's inviting to the future of Lathrup. I understand I've recently moved out, and we have moved to our northern property. So seeing the signs, seeing the trail, that's what we live for now. And I'd love to see it in Oakland County right here in our own backyard. And I do think it would bring more folks in. And as somebody who recently did sell my house in Lathrup, I am very aware there's a lot of young families moving in. And it was thrilling to see that happening, and I'd love to see that nurtured for them as an educational opportunity. And the history signs, I really like the history signs. So I'm 100% obviously in favor of it, and I understand I'm not a vote because I don't live here anymore, but my heart's still here, so thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, council people. Mark Vanderwerp, 19051 Saratoga, probably one of the newest Lathrup residents, just moved in the end of April. And so just wanted to say thank you for hosting the ability to talk about this preserve, and glad to hear people are mulling over the possibilities and considering the options. I have to say, as a new resident, one of the things that drew me to Lathrup Village was the sense that you're kind of out in the country, even though you're not. It's amazing how quickly you can turn off of 12 mile or Southfield Road and hit an unpaved dirt road. Some people would probably find that annoying. I find that a relief. It's enjoyable. So when I heard about the Village Preserve, I thought, hey, what a cool idea. I mean, this is kind of nurturing one of the what I think is kind of one of the key concepts of the neighborhood, that it's kind of open, bigger lots, lots of trees, green space. And of course, I'm a biologist, so it's right up my alley. And so I was happy to join in and help out. And I do have to say, it's a very open group, open to outsiders and discussions, because I showed up, and the first or second time I volunteered, I became a governing board member. So it's not too hard to have some influence in the group. But I do hear some very... If you miss a
meeting, you'll be president.
Yeah. No, slow down. Slow down. But there are some very real concerns being brought up. So I do feel for people who, I know what it's like when you cut down a tree, it opens up a space. And so when you're removing invasive species, it does open things up. You got to understand the long term that things are going to be planted that are going to fill that space in. You got to give it a little time. But I know what that's like. No one wants trees that they used to have in their backyard cut down, and now people can see in. And I'm totally open to other ways of blocking that. I mean, I think you can put plants in there that are 10 times better vision blockers than a fence would be. You know, you could plant some very nice thicket-forming native species that if they spread, okay, great. We'd be fine with having those there. And in fact, that's one of the things I'm doing in my own yard. I'm cutting down the buckthorn, and people think I'm weird probably. Hey, why are you cutting trees down? But I'm planting stuff that I like, that's going to be a lot more nature-friendly. And so I've been a beekeeper. I'm an entomologist. I'm kind of into bugs. So there's and to address the point that was brought up about nature takes care of itself, I agree that nature reaches an equilibrium, but it doesn't take care of itself. So you can look at things like zebra mussels in Lake Michigan, and there's lots of species that will just go haywire and take over. So it's really a huge benefit to the city that there is a group of dedicated volunteers, exemplified by Sandy, who is willing to go in there and get sweaty and maintain the land, which is really what you need to have happen, and if you want a preserve like this to happen. Because it won't just take care of itself. I mean, yeah, it'll turn green, but it might be crap that you don't want there that doesn't benefit animal diversity at all, which is really the point of a space like this. And I also have to say, so one of my hobbies is nature photography, and it's cool. I've taken my camera down to the preserve a couple of times. So if you see someone with a big lens, I'm not looking in your windows taking pictures of the birds and the bees, all right? But be happy to show you some great I'll show you great bug photos anytime you want. But absolutely, I mean, I think one thing that we can take from this meeting is we need to have privacy established so that we can build that trust back up. So I'm all for that. And also, I also want to extend an olive branch. If anybody wants to swap houses, I would love to live next to a nature preserve. So, hey, I have a great manicured yard, and I'm going to screw it up and plant native plants there. So this is a chance to help. We could help multiple people here. But yeah, so I just wanted to say a couple of those things. So I'm obviously for it, but I want to do it in a way that's respectful to the neighbors. I mean, I get that maybe you don't want, or that wouldn't be your ideal use of the land, but I think we can do it in a way that you could at least get on board with it. And if we can't get you on board with it, then we should try to tweak it so we can. And I'm a tennis player. I would enjoy tennis courts, but there's a number of courts in the area that I drive past, and they're open. But there's very few places where you can go out and cruise through a bunch of native wildflowers and that kind of thing. So I think it is very unique. It's very worth preserving, and it's awesome that it's very cheap land to maintain for the city moving forward, which I think is a big benefit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You already talked.
Hi, I'm Andy Blinder, also ex-Lathrup resident, but 30-year resident before a move away in June. I was also at 27821 Santa Barbara. One thing I would like to definitely make a public acknowledgement of Sandy and her family and the 5 years we've been working. You essentially have had really a full-time employee unpaid for that time, 40 hours a week. So I think I'm still vice president on the preserve committee, and I have many wonderful scars that when I look at, I can remind myself of my efforts and what's been going on at the preserve. I just wanted to share one of my prouder moments of being on the committee when I really had the privilege for the preserve and the city of Lathrup to go to the Kellogg Center a year and a half ago and get a $500 grant from the Michigan Wildflower Association that we use for seeds and bushes. Speaking and gave them a little rundown of what we were trying to do in front of about 150 people. So that was nice to be able to share what we are doing as they were sharing what they were doing within their community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wants to speak a second time, you have to pay $1.
Now, buckthorn what is a buckthorn?
Ah. What is buckthorn, Sandy?
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that you buy, you create, that's a natural God-given plant.
Well, I think the point.
Not native to this area, that's
Right.
what their point is.
It's not native to Michigan?
Michigan at all, no.
So how did...
Drops those berries that the birds eat and then they
Yes.
poop on your car.
Yeah, well, you're concerned about the food that animals eat. Birds eat it, deer eat that. And you're concerned about things that people love. We love the buckthorn plant. So, but the thing is, when I first walked in on the meeting with Sandra and they was having this discussion, decided to go along with this need, I stated that I have no problem with it as long as don't have nothing to do, I don't get a chance to see it, they can have whatever they want. So why is it that you can't, out of all that property, why can't you just go 20 feet, just a little bitty, 20 feet, 10 yards from the neighbor's property and let that grow up and do whatever you want to in that park so we don't have to see it if we don't like it. We love the buckthorn, so we just see nothing but the buckthorn. You could do whatever you want to do out there. And a lot of people say that buckthorn, we're going to take over. I got buckthorn all over my... Buckthorn is what separates each and every house there on Morningside. You got buckthorn in your backyard. She got them in her
That's right.
backyard.
I'm waging war
She got
on it
them in
all
her-
every year.
Everybody got buckthorn. And you can't control something that the birds eat and fly over and poop on your cars and you and everything else. It's going to grow. You can't control that when you have birds constantly spreading those seeds.
You can, but it's a lot of work to do it.
Joe Cato, 18850 Roseland Boulevard. This piece of property from a developer is a valuable piece of property, but we bought our home in Lathrup Village for more than just the building structure. We bought it for the quality of life. And contributing to the quality of life is these things like the children's garden and this park, and the privacy aspect of it could easily be overcome. Okay? It's just a matter of rearranging the landscape. But what determined why we left the original places and moved to Lathrup Village was the quality, and that's education, and these things that are not necessarily directly associated with a physical building structure. So it's important for us to maintain that quality that makes the difference. That's why we moved here. We could have gotten mortgage and did our own home where we moved from. Thank you.
Now, this is your second time.
This is my second time, real quick. And I
Give her
hate
a
to do
dollar.
it, but I'm going to be sarcastic as well. If you want the privacy, you don't want the buckthorn, buy yourself some trees and plant them.
I love the buckthorn.
The buckthorn is not good for the rest of the neighborhood. As you don't like this, you know,
I love the buckthorn.
it's saving you money from buying some trees. That's it, I'm being sarcastic.
Just a quick question to Sandy. So for the 20 feet he's referring to,
well,
Can I do 20 feet on my neighbors too?
no, I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm saying when you discuss the berms, where are you going to install those? Because I couldn't get a reference.
Install the fencing?
Either the fencing or the berms.
I don't know what you're talking
You
about.
had a couple of berms on your presentation.
No, there were no
Was that
berms.
just
Somebody
fencing?
else suggested. Somebody suggested berms.
Okay, so your fencing is literally up against the other property line? Okay, so you guys have cleared that all the way across?
No.
Okay.
No.
So why is his property so open? That's what I'm trying to...
Because that's the side we started with, and his was already, there wasn't a whole lot of the big stuff behind there to begin with.
Okay, so is your property the only one that's open like that? Because when I went back there, that's...
Yeah, Mr. Lee's has a big hole.
Linda Smith's side is also open, which is the one I showed you with the trellises.
Okay.
So hers is more exposed as well.
Not only is my property the only one that's open like that, it also they went over on the property line and I had to go out and stop them. And the gentleman that was actually doing the cutting, They apologized and they moved, they said we won't cut anymore. But the damage was already done, and they stopped. And eventually they would come back late in the afternoon. I had to call the police a couple of times because they be out there working with flashlight. They had one lady out there working with a flashlight in the dark with a shovel. I don't know what she was doing, but I had to call the police because I felt very uncomfortable at nighttime. Someone, how you know who's in your backyard? That time of night.
There was the garlic mustard.
But
Okay.
what's wrong with just giving 10 to 20 feet from the property line? I just don't understand. You got enough land.
If we
You
do
got
that for
enough land.
you, why
got
don't we do
enough
it for
land.
every neighbor then?
Well, see, now you're being sarcastic and you're being...
No, I'm showing you how
No, it's
unreasonable
not
it
about
is.
that. Other neighbors don't have that park in their backyard.
I know.
All we do. The neighbors that live there do. The other
We're not going to conduct,
I'm
we're not going to conduct
Yeah,
a debate,
it doesn't
so
matter.
let's,
Go ahead.
we give everybody a chance to give us their opinions and voice their concerns, but go ahead.
I'm Debbie Holtland Dunn at 27440 Lathrup Boulevard. And my concerns are related to the amount of money that the city would be paying for the preserve. I think the preserve is a fantastic idea. And I think as it continues to age, it will come into its beauty. But for me, I've been attending quite a few city council meetings, and we have water pumps to replace, and we have to pay for the road that's being repaved that is Lathrup Village's portion, as well as some of the things that need done with Southfield Road. And so I was wondering, in terms of grants and fundraising, how we could use those type situations for the preserve, because I'm not sure that it's something that the city right now, with what their other needs are, can really afford to do this. The maintenance may be something else, but in terms of what the other expenses are, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to do that.
Well, it's the way it's zoned right now. It has limited.
What way?
It's zoned as, yeah, as far as grants, you have very limited.
Well, I don't think
grant.
the zoning has nothing to do with grants. What she's talking about is the land use. The land use has to be recognized, is what they're talking about.
So these minutes from February 21st, 2012, at a planning commission meeting, it says, the secretary to the Friends of the Village Preserve stated the following: not asking for funds, we're not asking for funds from the city general fund except the mowing and path, and then seeking grants. They'll seek grants for green natural space activities. So that, I think, it was before me, but I think that was the premise, that this was granted. Am I right, Mayor, that this...
Are you talking about
Yeah.
how much money was going to be
on the city? Yeah.
Well, it's also, what got me also was this a part of the proposal from the Village Preserve too, that was not put in that is, it says further, we propose to find funding sources to reimburse the city's expenses already put into this property. We propose to find funding sources to clear the land of invasive plant species and to replant with all native species. We will find the manpower to handle the transformation of this land. We propose that for the most part, this habitat will be practically maintenance-free, similar to the children's garden. The proposal also included a request of 6 to 12 months to develop and secure funding sources.
So do we give, you mentioned the children's garden. Does the city?
No.
We don't support the children's
No,
garden.
we don't.
Okay, so it's self-supported.
They did fundraisers and so on to,
Well, just part of clarity to shed some more light on that. I've written 3 grants, which are the WHAM grants, Wildflower Association of Michigan. Those grants are like $500, $800, and they'll give them to us, but none of the other grants are we eligible for, because they will only give money to land that's going to stay natural. So we can't get, when we wrote that, we were new to this. We didn't know this. We didn't know that because of where our status, we qualified for no other grants. Now, when I talked to you about the Six Rivers Conservancy, they can help us getting grants. I also told the council, I don't know how many months ago, that I sent information to Matt Baumgarten about a grant at South Oakland County area. This entire area was trying to pull together all kinds of nature places to get grants for buckthorn, but Matt did nothing. So I can't do anything about getting those funds.
I have two questions for you. One, and I was not here for this when you first proposed it, but I know the basis of it and what I'm thinking the basis of it, and then what the question was, is that going into it is where the city wouldn't be financially
right
responsible for it. And I'm assuming that that's one of the reasons why maybe it went through. Now, the questions regarding funding, which I did have a question for, what is it, the Six Rivers? What is it that the city of Lathrup has to give up in order to go into a partnership with them? Either give up or pay to be in a partnership with them?
It's not a pay-to. All you do is sign an easement over for the land to them.
So we're signing a portion of the land over to them.
You're basically giving them all property rights to that property.
And they're going to maintain it?
Signing off on it,
But
or
then
we're
not
just
willing to
letting
do
them
Well, and
work
then-
on it?
No.
Just signing off. Okay.
You provide all future rights to the property in essence, because that goes into a trust that you cannot use for any other purpose.
Okay.
And I'm not willing to give up those rights to some other organization other than the city itself.
So have you ever given a fundraiser? Have you given any fundraisers or something?
I certainly don't have, there's very few of us. So, no, I haven't given any fundraisers.
And another thing that what also came up, and this is something that came up after your presentation for the city council, is with the children's garden, because they are self-sufficient. They and you correct me,
They are,
Councilman.
yeah, they're self-sufficient.
Though they have approached us now because the
Right.
Village Preserve.
think
Yeah,
they,
so-
yeah, they think the
I'm
preserve's
one of
getting
the
money, so
founders
they
of the
should get it.
Children's Garden.
Right?
I know all about that.
But no, what the mayor is saying is that now, because of the funding that we've given to the Village Preserve, we have other entities that were self-sufficient now coming to the city too, asking now for funding.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know that you don't care about that, but,
I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I think,
Well, it's
some
not
people are
your,
gonna
it's
ask
not
them
your
about
worry,
it.
but it's ours.
But it is, and then she left. There are things that are coming down the pipe that we do have to pay for, and for me, which I still believe that is a very nice concept. I like it. I do have to be concerned about the privacy of others, and I think that it's kind of, and I know it sounds crazy, but it's kind of mean not to consider someone else's privacy. And the one thing that my concern has always been, and I've always voiced this to you, is the fact of the funding of it, and just maintaining it. And I understand that you're basing it off of the volunteers for the Village Preserve, but I've also seen the volunteers fall off, and I understand that they're saying that's because they don't know what we're going to do with the property. But it also scares me in the fact that going down further, down the years, into the years, what happens if more volunteers fall off, and it's just the responsibility of the city.
Well, but remember, I had this discussion with you that those of us who founded and started the Children's Garden, none of us work on it now, the four of us. The next generations do come.
Okay.
And so the next generations are already coming. Mark has been there. He certainly is, far younger than I. I mean, the next generations are happening. And so I don't know. I don't know how to answer that because none of us can predict.
I understand that, and the one thing that what basically is, I just ask for, everyone to be respected on what their opinion is, and these are my concerns. I know that you can't answer it, but this is always, as I've talked to you before, cost, maintenance, that's just my concerns of it.
Let me go back to a couple of things. I appreciate what you said about the privacy. I guess I'm taking a second turn. But again, let me go back to that.
Turn. I'm keeping count on you.
That mandate of needing 16 acres of green space And it's your responsibility as council members to balance the privacy of a few, and I appreciate that, for the greater good of the whole community.
It, by the way, is not a mandate.
Not a mandate.
Just so you know, I bridle at the idea of mandates, so I just,
Direction.
yes. It's a recommended by a certain body, a recommendation that cities have that much green space.
Sandy, did you, and again, I'm just listening a lot because I want to hear the history as well. But when you started this, did you talk to the circle? Did you do a poll?
When I started this, and I can show you, I put letters in each of their mailbox. It says, would you like a preserve here? Would you like housing here? I have all of them said they wanted a preserve. I have those originals. I can give them to you. What I have learned since I have loved Lathrup. My children have said thank you for raising us here. This has been the greatest place around until this project. I have never met so many people who could only think of I, not we, not the community. What's best for me? How does it affect me instead of how does it affect us all? And I'm not wired that way. My blood doesn't pump that way. We are about a greater good than ourselves. If I don't want to see my neighbors, then I think I'll put up fencing or I'll put up plants. In one of the many conversations that I had with the people around the preserve, and we're complaining about this, I said, you know, my neighbor had to cut down 26 trees from Dutch elm. Should I tell him he has to replace every of those trees? I don't get
But he has a choice to
why
do it.
there is
That's
this,
just it. You
this
have
is
change.
all about them.
But I think that there
All
just I think that there could just be a conversation because Lathrup Village, we talk to each other, and maybe it's been 5 years. It's been 5 years, so maybe there's a couple of issues. One is about the city having to help support it, but I think the issue really is just you coming together with the people on the circle to see. I think a gentleman talked about how can you compromise, what can you do at this point to make it palatable for them as well as what you're doing. I really appreciate
I think
all the work that you have done, but maybe with the 5-year interval, it's time to just.
There is nobody here who doesn't love this idea.
Right.
Absolutely loves, I love this idea. And I think, we can make it work with, the neighbors and the privacy. Let me tell you what my concerns are. My concerns are is that we've been promising a park, a green space, to a section of the neighborhood that doesn't have one. And, so now we find a way to say to them, we're going to put yet again those plans on hold because something else came up in an area that already has park, already has green space, it already has a park within the standards of a half mile, and a section of the city, I think your section,
Yeah.
Councilman Ferguson, that doesn't have green space, that doesn't have a park, that we've been working on to develop something in that area. So what do? It's a matter of priorities. Do we put them on hold? Again, we'll get to you, because we've got this. Or do we do them both? Let's do them both. Let's find money somewhere in the budget, in the extremely tight budget that we are.
Budgeted every year for the past 4 or 5 years.
That's not what has happened.
No, it hasn't happened.
So-
Yes, it has.
That's an urban legend, actually.
No, it's not.
Well, I mean, it's been budgeted, but we haven't,
It's in the minutes.
It
Yeah,
has-
no, it's been,
It has been budgeted.
It
for the last
absolutely
3
was
years.
budgeted. It is, and as you can see from the numbers, we have spent a lot of money. So it is not that we haven't spent it. It's a matter of, do we keep spending or budgeting 5,000 there, or do we then do it for the other area? So that's all.
I am hoping we can find a way to do it.
But again, we can't get grants for that space unless it is deemed green space.
Well,
And it
I
will
think,
not
I think
be
we can.
All right, so
Oh.
can I just say that it seems to me, part of the issue with the volunteers, because I've been out there talking to volunteers as we work, one of it is because we have not heard for sure that this is going to stay. It is very hard to get people out there working
Well,
that hard regularly,
that's-
donating money, even, I'm
I
trying to.
totally understand.
Right, so I'm trying to get the website going again, and the most I could buy with hosting was 6 months, because it's like, why spend another 2 years on this when it could get killed in 6 months? I think if we can get a commitment, we could get more volunteer commitment,
And
more
that's
donation
part of the
commitment.
purpose of what tonight is.
Right. So
To
I'm just-
listen to everybody's input, and then for council to make a decision about the future of the use of this land.
So my
So, once that's made,
My
you know.
point just was, I think that's the difference between the past and the potential for the future.
Yeah.
If the commitment is there, I think there will be a greater commitment
Right.
from the community
Yes.
because they see the commitment versus just, can you come over and pull out some buckthorn?
Well, we had the same concerns also. I mean, we thought, okay, Village Preserve folks, they started really large, and then there was an ebb and flow there, and we said, are they going to survive? We asked the same question. Then we said, hey, Sandy, can you come to the council meetings, give us an update, give us the 3-year projection? We asked for all these questions. We even had to make the list. And that's why I'm sitting here a little off balance, because I'm really trying to get the idea that, are you guys going to be around? And are we going to commit to you? So we still don't have that question really answered. We just, I see the presentation and I see the numbers, but in addition to that, there are some things on that list that are pretty high. For example, the benches are slightly high because I think the Children's Garden did a better job at pricing their benches. So there's some room for improvement on that list. I mean, you plop down 12 grand, I'm thinking, okay.
There were 12 grand in benches.
No, I'm saying the total amount.
Thank everybody
We
for
can
coming.
ebb and flow that. So,
I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. This has really been valuable, productive. Love all of the input.
are we going somewhere?
I'm
We
going.
are.
I'm
We are.
going.
Could I?
Well, I have a couple of more things.
When will we
that I
have
wanna
some
say.
closure on this?
Right.
Andy, when's this on the agenda? This is really difficult with the next coming, this is November.
I don't believe it's on the next agenda.
my intent is that we would be in a position that decisions are made during these winter months so that your organization and this council will know that come spring, you know, what the right direction is.
Well-
It's already been decided by them.
Here to tell you about that, if I write another wildflower grant, that has to get put in December. So the deadline, and I'm not, why should I go to the trouble if we're not going to have a preserve? We also do buckthorn busting in November, and we can do it throughout the winter if the days are decent. So, you know.
So here's my question, why can't it be on any
It can be.
time sooner?
It can
Because
be.
this
I'm just saying
it's been going on for.
the intent was to do it sooner rather than later, okay? So
Well, I
we'll work
appreciate
with the administration in terms
I would just
of
like to
putting
hear
out
more
an
from the
agenda.
community. I would like to hear more from the circle. I would like to hear more from, you know, to me, this is the first conversation. And we need to, did you have, oh, you were putting on your coat. I mean, this is November.
But
I
this
think
has
we
been
need
going on
another
for, it's been
conversation, to
going
be
on for
honest
5
with you.
years,
I
and
think-
it is time to stop dragging.
But we haven't really, we haven't really done anything.
As far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned,
I mean,
since I've gotten here, we're really just starting.
we've been putting a lot of pressure on Sandy to say, to give us a lot of information, and we've been checking the emails. But I mean, really, this is the first hearing.
We have the copy of their presentation, and has all this information in it. So we will
Think of a process.
print that off so that each member of the council gets a copy, and the planning commission members as well.
But it's also where, and I think that, you know, for everyone to be out here until 9 o'clock, there needs to be some, like a next action step, or what's our next step? And it could be another town hall or something, but I'm assuming you want to know, you want to have some type of
You need to know by December,
next.
before December.
No, I'm saying this is the next steps period, and what we're gonna do next. That's, you know.
Well, I think the next step is for us to discuss this at a study session.
Okay.
And then
So that's action.
if at this study session, we decide we need another public hearing, we'll have another public hearing. But if maybe we can get together and iron out some of these issues at a study session and see what we still need to make a decision.
So when is your deadline, Sandy?
December. Today.
I mean, do you need to, I mean, we can't make a decision today.
I knew that.
Yeah. But I mean, for grant writing, you need to know.
We should have took in December. That's all I know. Probably.
So can we put this?
We should have took a secret ballot tonight from you guys.
So can we put this on?
No, we won't.
our-
No, we won't.
Can we put this on our next study session instead of just kind of being a passive action step for it to actually be?
When's our next study session?
Next.
I don't have my
Monday?
calendar.
Monday.
Monday.
Talk it over Monday. It'd be
We can
good.
do it Monday, or we can do it the first,
Well,
Monday,
we'll put on the
December.
study session agenda for Monday as to, as we'll discuss then what we know and don't know and we need to know, and then we'll do what we got to do to get it on track.
I'd like to talk about it Monday.
okay. So if we could put that on our.
Consider that done, Madam Stallings,
Okay.
Member Stallings.
Sorry?
Said consider that done then for Monday. It's on.
It'll be on the study session on Monday, right? Thank
Yep.
you. Okay. All right.
And as always, study sessions, city council meetings are
Open to the public, by the way, so
What time?
It starts at 6.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock the study session actually begins, so. And that's followed, the study session, this next one will only be an hour long because it's followed by a regular council meeting that has to, that's advertised at 7 and has to begin at the time advertised, so
Is there a regular meeting on Monday too?
there's a regular meeting on Monday as well, yes.
Okay, well, it's going to be fun.
So this must be the new city council.
So does anyone have any other questions or concerns that, you know, that's burning right now that you?
Yes.
Could I just throw out a microphone?
Yes, yes, yes.
If I could just throw out kind of one final thought. I don't know anything about budget planning that you guys do or how tight things are, but when Sandy was going through the presentation and the $1,200 a year figure came up, it kind of seemed like everyone was like, whoa, that's really cheap. And as someone who knows what it costs to mow lawns, yeah, I can see that's not a lot of maintenance costs for a 2-acre parcel.
I need to have my house as
But-
preserved.
But then the discussion at the end here is kind of like, well, why are we putting money towards this? And so I guess that's a little confusing, but I would like to say that $1,275, if anything, is going to go down over time, not up over time. If you recall can you advance a slide? About half of that was for planting new trees and plants.
Of the 1275?
Yeah, I think
No, I
did
thought
you have
1275?
500 was allocated to new plantings.
Of yearly new plantings.
Yeah, which really, that is more of a short-term goal.
Uh-huh.
Once things are established, new plantings aren't going to have to continue ad nauseum. That's really more of a short-term goal. So that cost really will probably get cut in half, in all honesty, a few years down the road. Thanks.
Again, we appreciate everyone's patience. Tom, one last thing, and then we're going to adjourn. And thank you all, is what we'll do.
One thing that I think you ought to take into consideration and have in the back of your mind, we used to have here in the city a group called the Village Gardeneers, who was very, very active for a while. They're no longer in existence. We used to have a supper club that was very, very active. I don't think they're very active anymore or still in existence. We had a women's club that was extremely active for many, many years that is just barely holding on now. And I'm a member of the Lathrup Village Lions Club, who also is suffering diminishing numbers as far as that's concerned. American Legion, VFW, all of the veterans groups you would think after the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan would just be overflowing with members. That is not the case. Their numbers are diminishing. Volunteer groups are no longer really very popular, unfortunately. And I'm fearful if we put a great deal of stock into this volunteer group, and mind you, I love this lady, and I have seen her family grow from when they were just a gleam in Mitch's eye, but I'm fearful as to the longevity of the group, to be very, very truthful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, and of course, that is a concern, and so as we make, you know, a decision going forward, it is with the notion that, of course, that's a possibility, and, you know, and when and will, you know, the city be able to take over that function. Of course, that's a concern and something that has to go into the equation, but, you know, as long as we don't lose Sandy.
Again, we want to thank each and every one of you for coming and spending all this time with us. We understand the earlier start time, which we didn't meet, unfortunately. I apologize again for that, but may have necessitated some of us not having supper, or dinner, or whatever it might be. But so again, we thank you. We will stand adjourned then, and we thank you all for being here. And again, if you would there are sign-up sheets at the back. If you'd give us your name and your email address and so on, we can send updates as we move along here.